Commander Marcus Kane stood in the observation deck of Deep Space Monitoring Station Omega-7, watching Jupiter's red storm swirl below through the reinforced glass. His cybernetic arm hummed softly as he adjusted the controls, the metal fingers moving with practiced precision. The space station orbited the gas giant like a silent sentinel, its sensors reaching deep into the void between stars. Dr. Elena Vasquez burst through the doors, her dark hair disheveled and her tablet clutched tightly in her hands. "Marcus, you need to see this," she said, her voice trembling with excitement and fear. "We picked up something from the Vega system. It's not natural." Kane turned, his weathered face creasing with concern. Elena had been monitoring alien communications for 15 years, ever since she fled the burning colonies on Mars during the uprising. She knew the difference between cosmic radiation and intelligent signals. "Show me," Kane said, following her. To the main communications center where Lieutenant Rex Morrison sat hunched over his equipment. Morrison's enhanced hearing implants glowed blue in the dim light, his augmented ears capable of detecting the faintest whispers across the void. "It came in 3 hours ago," Morrison said, his gravelly voice barely above a whisper. "At first, I thought it was interference, but the pattern repeats. Elena's been working on translation." Elena connected her tablet to the main display, and strange symbols filled the screen. The characters seemed to shimmer and shift, like light reflecting off crystal. "It's unlike anything in our databases," she explained. "But there are mathematical constants embedded in the message. Prime numbers, pi the golden ratio. They're trying to establish intelligence." Kane studied the alien script, his military mind already analyzing possibilities. "How long to decode it?" "I've been running it through every linguistic algorithm." "We have," Elena replied. "But this morning, something clicked. The symbols aren't just language, they're emotional states. Fear, desperation, hope. It's like they're transmitting feelings along with words." Morrison suddenly straightened, his implants flashing brighter. "Commander, there's more coming in." "Same source, stronger signal?" The new transmission flooded. The speakers with harmonious tones that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the soul. Elena's fingers flew across her keyboard, translating in real time as the message unfolded. "To the warriors of the Deathworld," Elena read aloud, her voice growing more urgent with each word. "We are the Luminari of Crystalla. Our peaceful civilization faces extinction at the hands of the Vorthan Empire. They consume worlds and enslave species. We have heard whispers across the void of your people, survivors from a world that should have killed you. We beg for your aid." Kane felt ice form in his stomach. First contact with an alien species, and they were asking for help in a war. "Keep translating," he ordered. Elena continued. "We know you fight where others would flee. We know you survive where others would die. The Vorthans call us weak because we choose peace. They call you impossible because you choose to endure. Our children hide in the crystal caves as their ships burn our cities. Time grows short. If you can hear this message, please help us. The coordinates to our world are embedded in this transmission." The message ended with a sound like breaking glass, followed by silence. Morrison's equipment registered nothing but empty space where the signal had been. "How far is Vega?" Kane asked, though he already knew the answer. 25 light years, Elena replied. "That message took 25 years to reach us. Whatever's happening there, might already be over," Kane finished. But something in his gut told him otherwise. The desperation in that alien voice, the calculated risk of sending a message across the void to an unknown species, suggested these Luminari were still fighting. Morrison suddenly spun in his chair, his face pale. "Commander, I'm picking up something else. Multiple contacts, different source? They're much closer." Kane moved to the tactical display as red dots appeared at the edge of the solar system. "How close?" "Outer asteroid belt," Morrison replied. "The signatures don't match anything in our databases, but they're moving fast and heading toward the inner system." Elena gasped as she continued analyzing the alien transmission. "Marcus, there's more data hidden in the message. Technical specifications, star charts and, She paused, her face going white. Warnings about the Vorthan Empire. They don't just conquer worlds, they strip them bare and move on. And according to this data, they've been expanding in our direction for centuries. Kane's cybernetic arm clenched into a fist. The timing was too perfect to be coincidence. An alien distress call followed immediately by unknown ships entering human space. Either the Luminari had somehow survived long enough to guide help to their world, or something much worse was coming. "Morrison, any response from Earth Command?" Kane asked. "Negative, sir. All long-range communications are being jammed. Something's interfering with our quantum entanglement relays." Kane moved to the Emergency Protocols panel and placed his palm on the scanner. Red lights bathed the station as General Quarters alarms began to sound. "All hands to battle stations. Elena, I need everything you can extract from that Luminari. Message, technology, tactics, anything that might help us understand what we're facing." "Already on it," Elena replied, her fingers flying across multiple keyboards. "But Marcus, if these Vorthans are coming here, we need to warn Earth, 25 billion people with no idea what's heading their way." Kane stared at the tactical display where more red contacts were appearing. Whatever was coming had been traveling for a long time, possibly since before the Luminari message was sent. The aliens hadn't just been calling for help, they'd been warning humanity about an invasion. "Morrison, launch all emergency beacons. Scatter them across the system on random vectors," Kane ordered. "If our communications are jammed, maybe one will get through." As the station's crew raced to implement emergency protocols, Kane found himself thinking about the words in the alien message. Deathworld warriors. Survivors from a world that should have killed them. He'd never thought of Earth that way, but from an alien perspective, maybe it made sense. Most humans had never considered how impossible their existence might seem to beings from gentler worlds. Elena suddenly looked up from her work, her face a mixture of amazement and terror. "Marcus, I've decoded more of the technical data. The Vorthans don't just have advanced technology, they have ships the size of small moons. But there's something else. The Luminari message includes tactical data about human combat effectiveness." "How would they know anything about human combat?" Kane asked. "Long-range observations," Elena replied. "They've been watching us for decades. Our wars, our survival instincts, our refusal to surrender even when facing impossible odds. According to their analysis, humans are the first species they've encountered that might actually be able to fight the Vorthans and win." Morrison's equipment screamed with new contacts. "Commander, massive energy signatures just appeared throughout the outer system. Whatever's coming, it's bigger than anything we've ever built." Kane looked out at Jupiter's swirling storms and made a decision that would change the course of human history. "Morrison, send a message on all frequencies. Tell Earth Command we have first contact with hostile aliens inbound. Tell them to mobilize everything that can fly and fight. And Elena, send that Luminari message to every military installation in the system." As alien warships began their approach to Earth, Kane realized humanity was about to face its greatest test. The question wasn't whether they could survive, but whether they could become the warriors the galaxy needed them to be. The Deathworld's children were about to answer a call for help that had traveled across the stars. But first they would have to survive what was coming to their own home. Admiral Isabella Cross stood in the war room beneath Luna's surface, surrounded by holographic displays showing every human ship in the solar system. The emergency beacons from Jupiter had reached Earth just hours ago, but their message was already reshaping human civilization. First contact with aliens, and they were coming to kill everyone. "Status report," Cross demanded, her voice cutting through the chaos of officers coordinating the largest military mobilization in human history. At 55, she had gray streaks in her black hair and scars on her hands from the Titan War, where Vorthan advanced scouts had tested human defenses without anyone realizing what they were fighting. Captain Dmitry Volkov stepped forward, his pale eyes scanning the tactical displays. He commanded the Ghost Battalion, soldiers who specialized in impossible missions and had never failed to complete an assignment. "All military vessels are responding to the recall order," he reported. But we're also getting volunteers from unexpected sources. Explain, Cross said, though she could already see civilian ships moving on the displays. Asteroid miners are retrofitting their ships with kinetic weapons, Volkov continued. Deep space haulers are volunteering as supply vessels. Even the research stations are asking for combat assignments. Cross nodded grimly. Humanity's greatest strength had always been their refusal to accept defeat, but it was also their greatest weakness. Civilians were going to get themselves killed trying to fight an enemy they didn't understand. Commander Yuki Tanaka entered the war room, her flight suit still damp with coolant from the experimental shipyards. She commanded the dreadnought Ragnarok, a massive warship that incorporated technology salvaged from crashed alien scouts over the past decade. Admiral, the Ragnarok is ready for deployment. All experimental systems are online. What's our total fleet strength? Cross asked. Chief Engineer Pablo Santos consulted his tablet, his weathered face creased with worry. He had spent 20 years designing humanity's weapons, always knowing this day might come. 300 military vessels of various classes, 800 civilian ships volunteering for combat duty, and approximately 2,000 support vessels. But Admiral, against the enemy fleet size estimates from the Luminari data, we're outnumbered 50-1, Cross finished. I know, the tactical display updated as more ships reported ready status. Cross studied the formations taking shape across human space, noting how different this fleet was from any military force in galactic history. Other species built specialized warships and trained professional soldiers. Humans were preparing to fight with mining ships, cargo haulers, and anyone brave enough to strap weapons to their vessel. There's something else, Santos said hesitantly. The Luminari technical data includes information about human combat effectiveness that we never transmitted. They've been observing us for decades, Cross frowned. What kind of observations? Santos activated a new display showing alien analysis of human behavior. According to their data, humans are the only known species that becomes more dangerous when threatened. Most galactic civilizations surrender when faced with overwhelming odds. Humans fight harder. Volkov studied the alien analysis with professional interest. They cataloged our military responses to the Titan insurgency, the Mars uprising, and the Europa crisis. Every time humans faced extinction, we adapted and survived. The aliens call Earth a death world, Tanaka added. They list our planets' characteristics and can't understand how any species survived to develop intelligence. Asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, ice ages, predators that hunt in packs. From their perspective, every day on Earth is a survival test. Cross looked at the fleet statistics again, seeing them from an alien perspective. Human ships weren't the largest or most advanced, but they were built by a species that had survived everything their homeworld could throw at them. What's the status on our new weapons? Santos brightened slightly. The plasma cannon prototypes are installed on all dreadnoughts. Kinetic penetrators are loaded on every ship with mass drivers. And the Ghost Battalion has been equipped with the new exoskeleton armor. Effectiveness against alien technology? Cross asked. Unknown, Santos admitted. But the Luminari data suggests Vorthan ships rely heavily on energy shields and regenerative hull plating. Our kinetic weapons might be more effective than energy beams. The War Room's communications array suddenly activated, displaying an incoming message from the outer system. Commander Marcus Kane appeared on the main screen, his face grim as he transmitted from the Jupiter monitoring station. Admiral, we've intercepted Vorthan communications, Kane reported. They're not just invading, they're conducting a test. Our solar system is their evaluation of human combat capabilities before they decide whether to exterminate us or recruit. U.S., Cross felt ice form in her stomach. Recruit us for what? Their empire, Kane replied. The Vorthans don't just conquer civilizations, they incorporate them. Species that prove useful are enslaved and forced to fight in their armies. Species that resist are eliminated. Volkov stepped closer to the screen. What are our tactical options? Kane's expression darkened. According to intercepted transmissions, they expect us to surrender when we see their fleet size. Standard galactic protocol is for inferior civilizations to submit rather than face extinction. They don't know humans very well, Cross said quietly. No, they don't, Kane agreed. But Admiral, there's something else. A Luminari refugee ship just entered our sensor range. It's badly damaged and being pursued by Vorthan scouts. Cross made her decision instantly. All ships, this is Admiral Cross. We are about to make first contact with alien refugees under hostile fire. Today we show the galaxy what humans do when innocent people need help. The fleet mobilization accelerated as every available ship moved toward the outer system. Cross watched the tactical displays update in real time, showing human vessels arranging themselves into formations that had never been tested against alien technology. Tanaka checked her equipment one final time. Admiral, the Ragnarok is ready. To engage, all experimental weapons are charged and standing by. Remember, Cross said, addressing the entire war room and broadcasting to the fleet, we're not just fighting for Earth, we're fighting for every species that can't fight for themselves. The Luminari called us Deathworld warriors, and they were right. We're the children of a planet that tried to kill us every day, and we survived by never giving up. Santos activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, you are cleared for combat operations. Target priorities are Vorthan military vessels engaging refugee ships. Rules of engagement are simple. Protect the innocent, eliminate the threat. Cross studied the incoming tactical data from the refugee ship, noting the alien technology and damage patterns. The Luminari vessel was beautiful, constructed from what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed with internal light. The pursuing Vorthan ships were different, dark and angular with surfaces that seemed to absorb light. Fleet deployment complete, Volkov reported. All ships are in position and ready for engagement. Cross looked around the war room at the faces of her officers, seeing determination mixed with fear. They were about to fight an enemy they had never seen, using tactics that had never been tested to save aliens they had never met. Open a channel to all ships, Cross ordered. This is Admiral Cross to all human vessels. Today we face an enemy that has conquered hundreds of worlds and enslaved countless species. They expect us to surrender because that's what every other civilization has done when faced with their power. She paused, looking at the tactical display showing over 1,000 human ships spread across the outer system. They're about to learn that humans don't surrender. We don't abandon innocent people to save ourselves. And we sure as hell don't let bullies terrorize our neighbors. All ships, engage the enemy. Show them what Deathworld warriors can do. As the human fleet accelerated toward their first interstellar battle, Cross realized they were about to either save two civilizations or doom them both. But for the first time in human history, Earth's children were no longer fighting alone. Captain Maria Santos gripped the command chair of the assault carrier Leviathan as the ship shook under enemy fire. Through the bridge windows, she could see the damaged Luminari refugee vessel limping toward their position, its crystalline hull cracked and bleeding light into space. 3 Vorthan scout ships pursued like predators hunting wounded prey. Target the lead Vorthan vessel, Santos ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. All batteries full spread. The Leviathan's plasma cannons erupted in brilliant streams of superheated energy, but the Vorthan ship's shields absorbed the impact without apparent damage. The alien vessel was sleek and organic-looking, its hull rippling like living metal as it regenerated from minor hits. Captain, their shields are adapting to our energy weapons, reported the tactical officer. Plasma effectiveness down 30% and dropping. Santos smiled grimly. Then we stop using energy weapons. All ships switch to kinetic bombardment. Let's see how they handle good old-fashioned rocks. The human fleet changed tactics instantly, mass drivers launching tungsten penetrators at significant fractions of light speed. The Vorthan shields, designed to deflect energy beams, proved useless against solid projectiles. The lead scout ship staggered as kinetic rounds punched through its hull. Sergeant Jack Thompson monitored the Battle from the Leviathan's marine bay, his explosive charges arranged neatly on the equipment table. His squad of 30 Marines represented humanity's first ground combat unit designed specifically for alien warfare. They wore powered armor salvaged from Vorthan technology and carried weapons that combined human engineering with alien materials. "Sergeant, prep your squad for boarding action," Santos announced over the intercom. "That refugee ship has survivors, and we're going to get them out." Thompson grinned, his scarred face reflecting years of combat experience on frontier worlds. "You heard the captain, Marines. Time to show these aliens how Deathworlders do rescue operations." Dr. Alex Chen checked his medical supplies one final time, his hands steady despite having never treated alien physiology. He had volunteered for this mission after reading the Luminari distress call, driven by the same instinct that made human medics run toward gunfire to save lives. Navigator Lisa Park studied the tactical displays from her position at the helm, her enhanced spatial awareness tracking dozens of moving objects through three-dimensional space. She had spent 10 years navigating asteroid fields and knew how to move through impossible terrain at dangerous speeds. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures jumping into the system," Park reported. "Whatever's coming is much bigger than scout ships." The main display updated to show new contacts appearing throughout the outer solar system. Where the scout ships were the size of human destroyers, these new arrivals dwarfed anything in the human fleet. The smallest Vorthan vessels were kilometers long, and the largest was the size of a small moon. Santos felt her stomach drop as she counted enemy ships. "How many?" 60 capital ships, 300 escorts, and one command vessel that's registering as 15 kilometers in diameter," Park replied. "Admiral Cross is transmitting new orders." Admiral Cross's voice filled the bridge, calm and determined despite facing impossible odds. "All ships, this is Admiral Cross. The Vorthan main fleet has arrived earlier than expected. We are outnumbered but not outfought. Continue rescue operations while fleet elements move to engage." Santos watched as the human fleet split into multiple task forces, some ships moving to intercept the massive Vorthan fleet while others continued toward the refugee vessel. It was either brilliant tactics or magnificent suicide, and Santos wasn't sure which. "Marine dropship launching," Thompson reported from the bay. "ETA to refugee vessel, 3 minutes. The Luminari ship was unlike anything in human databases, its crystalline structure seeming to grow rather than being built. Weapon scars across its hull showed where Vorthan energy beams had cut deep, but the alien vessel still pulsed with internal light. Thompson's dropship attached to the refugee vessel's docking port with mechanical precision. As the airlock cycled, the Marine sergeant got his first look at aliens who weren't trying to kill him. The Luminari were tall and graceful, their skin translucent and glowing with soft blue light. They moved like dancers even in the cramped corridors of their damaged ship, their large eyes reflecting intelligence and desperate hope. "This is Sergeant Thompson, Human Rescue Team," he announced, not knowing if they understood his language. One of the Luminari stepped forward, speaking in musical tones that somehow conveyed meaning despite the language barrier. Chion's translation device activated, converting the alien words into English. "You came," the Luminari said, wonder in its voice. "The Deathworld warriors actually came to help us." "How many survivors?" Thompson asked, his squad spreading out to secure the area. 43 in this vessel," the Luminari replied. "But there are others. Hidden refugee ships throughout this system, fleeing the destruction of our homeworld." Hyun began treating wounded Luminari, his medical training adapting to alien physiology with surprising success. The basics of trauma care translated across species, and the Luminari's wounds were similar to those he'd seen in human combat zones. "Sergeant, we've got company," one of Thompson's Marines reported. "Vorthan boarding pods attaching to the hull." Thompson activated his squad's combat systems, powered armor humming to life as weapons armed automatically. "All Marines, prepare for close-quarters combat. Let's show these aliens how humans fight when innocent lives are at stake." The Vorthan boarding party cut through the hull with precision tools, creating a breach just large enough for their soldiers To enter. Thompson got his first look at the enemy as armored figures poured through the opening. The Vorthons were humanoid, but wrong. Their movements too fluid and their proportions slightly off. They wore living armor that rippled and adapted to damage, and their weapons fired streams of energy that could cut through metal like paper. Thompson's squad opened fire with kinetic weapons, solid projectiles punching through Vorthon armor that was designed to deflect energy beams. The aliens staggered under the unexpected attack, their tactics clearly optimized for fighting civilizations that used similar technology to their own. "Target their joints," Thompson shouted as he lobbed explosive charges into the enemy formation. Their armor can't adapt to good old-fashioned explosions. The close-quarters battle raged through the Luminari ship's corridors, human marines using terrain and improvised weapons while the Vorthons relied on superior technology and numbers. Chun continued treating wounded while providing tactical support. His medical training including combat first aid under fire. Park's voice crackled through Thompson's communication system. "Sergeant, massive Vorthon reinforcements inbound. The big ships are launching assault craft." Through the breached hull, Thompson could see the Vorthon command vessel moving closer, its surface covered with weapon emplacements and launch bays. Smaller ships were detaching from the massive vessel like insects swarming from a hive. "All Luminari, evacuate to human ships immediately," Thompson ordered. Marines, fighting withdrawal to the extraction point. As Thompson's squad covered the alien refugees' escape, he realized this was just the beginning. The Vorthon Empire had sent a full invasion fleet to test human capabilities, and Earth's children were about to face their greatest challenge. The refugee ship shuddered as Vorthon. Heavy weapons began cutting it apart. Thompson grabbed the last wounded Luminari and carried the alien toward the human dropship, enemy fire burning through the air around them. "Move, move, move, move!" Thompson shouted as his squad reached the extraction point. Time to go home and plan a real fight. As the human rescue ships pulled away from the dying Luminari vessel, Thompson looked back at the massive Vorthon fleet and realized they had just saved 43 aliens from an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations, but the real battle was about to begin, and the Vorthons were transmitting a message to Earth that would change everything. Lieutenant Colonel Hassan al-Rashid studied the tactical hologram in the Leviathan's war room, watching as Vorthon forces spread throughout the Vega system like a cancer. The rescued Luminari refugees had provided updated intelligence about their homeworld's fall, and the situation was worse than anyone had imagined. "Crystalla is still intact, but barely," reported Elder Veltar, the senior Luminari refugee whose translucent skin pulsed with dim light as he spoke. "Our people hide in the deep crystal caves, but the Vorthons are strip-mining the surface to build their weapon." Corporal Nina Kowalski looked up from her demolitions equipment, her young face serious as she processed the alien intelligence. She had volunteered for this mission after losing her family in the Mars colonies, driven by the need to prevent other innocents from suffering the same fate. "What kind of weapon?" Al-Rashid asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "Elder." Veltar's light dimmed further. "A planet killer that draws power from living beings. They have enslaved thousands of our people to fuel it. When it fires, it will destroy entire star systems." Captain Jake Williams reviewed the starfighter deployment plans on his tablet, his weathered hand steady despite the magnitude of their mission. He commanded the Suicide Squadron, pilots who volunteered for missions with no expectation of survival. "How long before it's operational?" Williams asked. "Based on our observations, perhaps hours," Veltar replied. "The Vorthons have been building it for months, using our people's life force to power the construction. When it activates, they will target your Earth first." Al-Rashid felt the weight of command settle on his shoulders. His Special Forces team was tasked with infiltrating the planet's surface and destroying the weapon while the main fleet engaged the Vorthon Navy. It was an impossible mission, which made it exactly the kind of assignment humans specialized in. "Tech Specialist Patel, status on your infiltration gear?" Al-Rashid asked. Raj Patel looked up from his computer systems, his enhanced cybernetic implants glowing as he processed data from dozens of sources simultaneously. I've adapted our electronic warfare packages to interface with Vorthan networks. If I can access their command systems, I might be able to free the enslaved Luminari. Might? Williams asked. The neural control implants are designed to be permanent, Patel admitted. Removing them requires precision surgery or massive electrical shock. Both options are dangerous. Admiral Cross's voice filled the war room as she transmitted from the fleet flagship. All units, this is Admiral Cross, long-range sensors show the planet killer charging its primary weapon. We have 6 hours before it reaches full power. All assault teams, you are cleared for final approach. Al-Rashid activated his squad's equipment, checking each piece of gear that would help them survive on an alien world. Human military doctrine emphasized adaptability and improvisation, skills that would be tested against technology they barely understood. Remember the mission parameters, Al-Rashid announced to his team. Primary objective is destroying the planet killer. Secondary objective is freeing as many Luminari as possible. Tertiary objective is surviving long enough to do both. Kowalski grinned as she armed her explosive charges. In other words, a typical Tuesday for human special forces. The assault ships launched from the main fleet as the space battle began, in earnest around them. Williams led his starfighter squadron in a desperate attack against the Vorthan super dreadnought, their small craft modified with ramming spikes and explosive charges designed to penetrate enemy armor. All fighters, this is Reaper 1, Williams announced over the squadron frequency. Target the command ship's weapon systems. We're going to punch holes in that thing until it stops shooting at our people. The Vorthan super dreadnought was 15 kilometers of armored death, its hull bristling with energy weapons and defensive systems. Human starfighters swarmed around it like angry insects, their kinetic weapons and explosive charges gradually wearing down the massive vessel's defenses. Williams' fighter shook as enemy point defense systems tracked his approach, energy beams heating his hull to dangerous temperatures. This is for everyone you've killed, he muttered, arming the ramming charges as he aimed for the dreadnought's main weapon array. The impact destroyed Williams' fighter instantly, but his sacrifice punched a hole through the enemy ship's armor that allowed other human vessels to exploit the weakness. Throughout the fleet, similar acts of desperate courage slowly turned the tide against seemingly impossible odds on Kristalla's surface. Al-Rashid's team dropped through the planet's toxic atmosphere in stealth pods designed to avoid Vorthan sensors. The world below was a nightmare of strip mining and industrial construction. The beautiful crystal formations that had given the planet its name now harvested to power an engine of destruction. Landing zone secured, Al-Rashid reported as his squad established a perimeter around their crash site. Beginning approach to target facility. The planet killer was visible from orbit, a massive structure built into Kristalla's largest crystal formation. Energy conduits ran from enslaved Luminari work camps directly into the weapon's core, creating a hellish network of suffering that powered the ultimate expression of Vorthan cruelty. Patel activated his electronic warfare systems as they approached the facility's outer defenses. I'm detecting massive security networks, but the protocols are unfamiliar. Give me time to adapt our systems. Kowalski studied the facility's layout through her scope, noting defensive positions and structural weak points. Colonel, if we can get inside, I can bring the whole thing down. But we need a distraction to reach the core. Al-Rashid made his decision. Patel, how many enslaved Luminari can you free simultaneously? If I can access the central command node, potentially thousands, Patel replied. But the feedback could kill them if the neural implants aren't removed properly. Sometimes you have to choose between certain death and possible survival, Al-Rashid said grimly. Do it! Patel's fingers flew across his interface as he penetrated the Vorthan command network. Alien security systems fought back, trying to trace his intrusion and eliminate the threat. But human hackers had learned their skills fighting Earth's most sophisticated artificial intelligences, and Patel was among the best. I'm in, Patel announced. Initiating mass liberation protocol. Throughout the facility, enslaved luminari suddenly straightened as their neural implants overloaded and failed. Some collapsed from the shock, but others began moving with purpose. For the first time in months, the carefully ordered work camps dissolved into chaos as freed slaves turned on their Vorthan overseers. Kowalski used the distraction to reach the planet killer's core, her explosive charges precisely placed to cause maximum structural damage. Charges set, Colonel. When this goes off, the whole facility comes down. Al-Rashid watched as freed luminari fought desperately against their former captors, using improvised weapons and sheer determination to even the odds. All teams prepare. For extraction, the party's about to get very loud. The planet killer's charging sequence accelerated as Vorthan engineers realized their facility was under attack. Energy readings spiked as the weapon prepared to fire at Earth, despite being incomplete. Colonel, we're out of time, Patel reported. The weapon is charging for emergency firing. If it activates now, the explosion will take out half the system. Al-Rashid looked at his team, seeing the same determination in their eyes that had carried humanity through every crisis in their violent history. Then we make sure it doesn't activate. Kowalski, detonate everything. The explosion that followed lit up crystallized sky like a second sun, destroying the planet killer and freeing thousands of enslaved luminari. But in space above, the Vorthan command ship was transmitting a new message that would determine the fate of both civilizations. Warlord Krexenar's voice echoed across all frequencies, speaking perfect English learned from intercepted human communications. Impressive, Deathworld warriors. You have proven yourselves worthy of our attention. But this was merely a test. Our main fleets are already moving toward your colonies. Surrender now, and your species will serve in our armies. Resist, and we will exterminate every human in the galaxy. As Al-Rashid's team evacuated with the freed luminari, they realized the real war was just beginning. Admiral Isabella Cross stood on the bridge of her flagship as the entire human fleet converged on Cristela, every ship from massive dreadnoughts to tiny fighters committed to the final assault. The Vorthan ultimatum had been answered with typical human diplomacy, overwhelming firepower directed at anyone who threatened innocent people. Fleet status report, Cross demanded, her gray eyes scanning the tactical displays that showed the largest space battle in galactic history about to begin. All human vessels ready for engagement, reported her tactical officer. Additionally, we're receiving support from freed slave fleets throughout the system. The Rocken are using their asteroid ships as kinetic weapons. The Nereids have flooded several Vorthan vessels, and the Stellarborn are overloading enemy computers with pure consciousness. Cross nodded grimly. Patel's virus had spread throughout the Vorthan network, freeing millions of enslaved minds simultaneously. For the first time in centuries, the Vorthan Empire faced a coordinated rebellion by every species they had conquered. Commander Marcus Kane transmitted from the planet surface where he was leading the final assault on the weapons control systems. His cybernetic arm sparked as he interfaced directly with alien technology, trying to prevent the planet killer from firing even in its damaged state. Admiral, the weapon is still partially operational, Kane reported, his voice strained as electricity coursed through his enhanced nervous system. The Vorthans built redundancies into every system. Even damaged, it could destroy Earth if they complete the firing sequence. Elder Veltar stood beside Kane in the crystal caverns, his people's ancient knowledge finally proving useful in their liberation. Commander Kane, there is another way. The weapon was built using our crystal technology, which responds to consciousness as much as electricity. If someone merged with the control matrix, Kane understood immediately. They could control the weapon permanently, but they'd be trapped in the system forever. Cross heard the conversation through the communication link and felt ice form in her stomach. Kane, do not attempt direct interface. That's an order. Sorry, Admiral, Kane replied, his cybernetic systems already beginning the irreversible connection process. Someone has to make sure this thing never fires again. Better me than the next generation. Warlord Krexenar materialized on the main display, his alien features twisted with rage as he realized his ultimate weapon was being turned against him. The Vorthan leader was massive, his body enhanced with technology from dozens of conquered worlds. Impossible Deathworld vermin, Krexener snarled. Your species should have been eliminated eons ago. We will not make that mistake again. Cross stepped forward, her command presence filling the bridge. The mistake you made was threatening innocent people in front of humans. We take that personally. The space battle erupted as both fleets engaged at point-blank range energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, turning the void around Crystalla into a maelstrom of destruction. Human ships fought with desperate fury while alien vessels burned under the combined assault of every species the Vorthans had oppressed. Lieutenant Colonel Al-Rashid led his ground forces through the crystal caverns toward the weapon's core, where Kane was making his final sacrifice. Freed Luminari fighters guided them through passages that led directly to the planet killer's heart. Patel, how many more slave ships can you liberate? Al-Rashid asked as they moved through the underground. Maze.Tech specialist Patel's cybernetic implants glowed brighter as he processed data from across the entire system. The virus is spreading exponentially. Every freed mind becomes another transmitter. The Vorthan control network is collapsing. Corporal Kowalski checked her remaining explosives as they approached the core chamber. Colonel, if Commander Kane. Can't stop the firing sequence. I've got enough charges left to crack this planet in half, Al-Rashid grimaced. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. They entered the core chamber to find Kane standing in the center of a crystalline matrix, his cybernetic arm fused directly with the alien control systems. Energy flowed through his body as he fought to contain the weapon's power. Status report. Commander, Al-Rashid called out. Kane's voice came from speakers throughout the chamber, his consciousness now distributed through the entire facility. I've got control of the primary systems, but Krexenor is trying to trigger manual detonation. If he succeeds, the explosion will destroy everything within 5 light years. Elder Veltar approached the crystal matrix, his ancient hands glowing as he touched the alien technology. Commander Kane, our people can help stabilize the interface. We built this technology to respond to multiple consciousness working together. Throughout the caverns, surviving Luminari joined their mental energy to Kane's enhanced nervous system, creating a network of organic and cybernetic intelligence that spanned the entire planet. For the first time in their history, the peaceful Crystal Builders became warriors. Admiral Cross watched the space battle from her flagship as human and alien forces pressed their attack against the Vorthan fleet. The enemy ships were larger and more advanced, but they had never faced an opponent that fought with such desperate determination. All ships, this is Admiral Cross, she announced on all frequencies. Today, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species that can't fight for themselves. Every slave that dreams of freedom. Every child that deserves to grow up without fear. Show them what Deathworld warriors can do when we fight together. The human fleet pressed their attack as freed slave ships joined the battle from every direction. Rock and asteroid vessels rammed Vorthan cruisers while Nereid waterships flooded enemy hulls and shorted out their systems. The Stellarborn abandoned their physical forms entirely, becoming living viruses that consumed Vorthan computer networks from within. Warlord Krexenor's command ship began retreating as his empire collapsed around him, but Cross wasn't going to let him escape to threaten other worlds. All vessels, target the command ship, Cross ordered. End this war before it spreads to other systems. The combined fleet converged on Krexenor's massive vessel, their weapons overwhelming its defenses through sheer volume of fire. The Vorthan warlord's final transmission echoed across all frequencies as his ship began to break apart. Impossible, Krexenor screamed. We conquered hundreds of worlds. We enslaved entire civilizations. How can creatures from a single death world destroy an empire? Cross opened a channel to reply, her voice calm and determined. Because we don't fight for conquest or glory. We fight for each other. And that makes us stronger than any empire built on fear. Krexenor's ship exploded in a brilliant flash, ending the Vorthan threat forever. But the cost had been enormous. With human casualties mounting into the thousands and entire ships lost to enemy fire in the crystal caverns, Kane's consciousness stabilized within the planetary network, his sacrifice ensuring the weapon could never be used for destruction again. The freed Luminari began the long process of rebuilding their civilization, but now they would never be alone. "Commander Kane," Al-Rashid called into the caverns, "can you hear us?" Kane's voice echoed from the crystals themselves, carrying new harmonics that suggested his consciousness had expanded beyond human limitations. "I'm here, Colonel. I'll always be here, watching over this place and making sure no one ever builds another planet killer." Elder Veltar approached the crystal matrix where Kane's body remained connected to the alien technology. "Commander, you have become part of our world's guardian network. Your consciousness will guide refugees from across the galaxy to safety in these caverns." Admiral Cross transmitted the final battle report to Earth Command as human ships began rescue operations. Throughout the system, thousands of freed slaves needed medical attention and transport to safe worlds, while the remains of the Vorthan fleet required salvaging for technology and intelligence. "This is Admiral Cross to Earth Command," she announced. "The Vorthan threat has been eliminated. Crystalla is secure, and we have established the first multi-species alliance in galactic history." The response from Earth carried joy and relief, but also recognition of what humanity had become. No longer were they just the survivors of a single death world, but the protectors of countless species who had never learned to fight for themselves. Months later, as the new alliance took shape, Cross established a code that would guide humanity's expansion into the galaxy. No species fights alone. Earth's fleets spread across the stars, not as conquerors but as protectors, ensuring that tyranny would never again threaten the innocent dot in the crystal caverns of Crystalla. Commander Kane's consciousness merged with the ancient Luminari network, becoming an eternal guardian who watched over refugees from across the galaxy. The planet that had nearly been destroyed became a beacon of hope, where any species could find sanctuary and protection. The galaxy had learned that humans weren't just impossible survivors from a death world, but the species that refused to let others face extinction alone. And in the depths of space, where new threats might someday emerge, the fleet of Deathworlders stood ready to answer any call for help.